Sorry, I don't do improv. So I'm Debarati Sanyal, and I teach in the French department, which means I sometimes teach a bunch of old stuff in a foreign language. So I'm basically going to take you into my classroom. My classroom, unlike many of yours, is small, often quite small, undergraduate that is, and often conducted in French. And so today I just wanted to say a few words about teaching the literature of the past. How do we make a foreign past familiar to undergraduate students while also making our own highly familiar shared presence just a little bit more foreign and strange. If we want to see students to see the stuff of the past not as museum exhibits, we obviously need to do some kind of shuttling between past and present, between a kind of reconstruction, right, and a reanimation. And I've often sort of tried to draw on contemporary popular culture to do that, and one really embarrassingly dated example was this class called Sex and the City, Passions and Fortunes in the 19th Century Paris, where the HBO series that some of you might know about women playing and working in Manhattan, turn of the millennium, was put into dialogue with stories of sex and ambition in the 19th century. So these exercises, at least I hope, don't just sort of open up similarities between past and present or make the argument that, hey, HBO does it, so we should read Balzac. But they can also highlight what's distinctive, right, about each place and period and open up zones of difference as well as zones of resonance. So the example I just wanted to talk to you about today is, you could go to maybe the next slide, is 19th century French poet Charles Baudelaire, who's often seen as the poet of Paris, capital of modernity, the poet of commodity culture, at a time when self becomes more and more enmeshed in stuff. And a memorable example of Baudelaire's sort of interest in selves and stuff is, and the only bit of poetry you're going to get here, is this one description that he has of the poet as, quote, a heavy chest of drawers containing scraps of verse. That's Baudelaire. So, to amplify our readings of this, pretty challenging poet, I use caricatures by his contemporary, Jean-Jacques Granville. He liked to be called JJ, and that's not even his real name. And that would be the next slide, please. Like this one from the 1840s, and that shows a fish fishing for consumers by dangling watches, bottles, magazine subscriptions, and other trinkets as bait. And there's also a very menacing tree hovering over the whole scene. Granville's caricatures, like Baudelaire's poems, open up a discussion about the bourgeoisie's psychic colonization by stuff. It also can open up to a conversation about nature's revenge on men, on instrumental rationality, et cetera, and so on. We can go in all sorts of directions. I also turn to David Fincher's cult classic film, Fight Club. I don't know if you've seen this, 1999, and it's a kind of satire of American neoliberal consumerism that also explores the liberating powers of physical violence and reclaimed virility. So Fight Club helps us read Baudelaire in several ways, and in fact, Baudelaire wrote his own kind of Fight Club-ish poem, and the title of that is Let's Beat Up the Poor. So in Fincher's movie, and we can go to the next slide, thank you. In Fincher's movie, as the white-collared protagonist orders IKEA furniture, he sits on the can and he's going through the catalog. His condo room takes the shape of a virtual three-dimensional IKEA catalog with product descriptions that are overlaid on the screen. Like so many others, he drones, I had become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct. I flip through catalogs and wonder, what kind of dining set defines me as a person? That's Fight Club. Now, even as we note similarities between these different visions of commodity culture, we also kind of recall differences between the kinds of selves imagined in, say, 19th century Paris and those imagined here and now. We might, for instance, discuss how in Baudelaire's poetry, the description of lavish interiors might be compensating for the loss of selfhood felt in the 19th century urban crowds. By contrast, Fight Club's IKEA condo suggests the demise of individual selves altogether, It points instead to the mass production of identity and desire under global capitalism. And in Fight Club, the narrator's alter ego actually says that people have now become mere byproducts of a lifestyle obsession. So the general idea in this kind of visual framing is to create the conditions for revitalizing bits of the past within the present, and of the present within the past, highlighting circuits of exchange between them, so that even as we're transmitting historical information, we're also sparking our students' imagination and their critical faculties. Thanks.